Hey everybody, Mike Aguilar, President of the Fiscal Challenge. I want to talk to you about data, how you use it to succeed in our competition. So if you look at the whiteboard, I have your target variable, debt to GDP. Numerator is debt. Consists of revenues and outlays. Where do you get those? I'll show you. Some terms, debt held by the public versus total debt. I'll show you the differences. Denominator, GDP. Vagaries to the definition. Real versus nominal. Potential versus actual, GDP versus GNP. What are the differences? Where do I get that information? That's what I want to discuss in this short video. So if you come with me to the computer, let's see if I can do a little split screen for you. There we go. I have Fred. All right, this is a tool provided by the St. Louis Federal Reserve. It's free. You have access to it right now. Called up two tickers. Debt to GDP. That's your target variable. Why is there a difference between the blue and the red? Blue, federal debt held by the public. Red, total debt. Why is there a difference? The U.S. Treasury will issue debt. Some of the debt they issue will be bought by public entities, such as you and I, businesses, other governments. Some of it would be bought by other government organizations within the U.S., such as the Social Security Administration. So the red line is the total that includes that Social Security holdings. Our focus is on the blue, that which is held by the public. Now, that is not saying that the red line is not useful. It's not even saying that that shouldn't be the proper target variable. But most policy discourse is around the blue, so that's what we're going to focus on. Federal debt held by the public. What's nice about Fred is if you hover over, you can see what the most recent value is. For the third quarter, it's at 96.19. In the future, where do you get that from? Ticker is right there for you, okay? That's the ticker on Fred for your target variable. Fred is a great resource, but it's not the only resource. Let me take you to the Congressional Budget Office. This is a wonderful organization that has a ton of great analysis, but also a ton of great data. If you go right over here and you click on data, I opened that up already for you, it has tons of budget information as well as economic information. Projections, historical data. It also has long-term projections, which is your planning horizon, 30 years. I called up one of those files for you, and it's right here. Now, if you're not a data person, this might seem daunting. Make sure you have somebody on your team that's accustomed to analytics. What they'll see is that this report was put together in March of 2021, and it has fiscal years from 2021 all the way down to 2051. That is the 30-year planning horizon that you're focused on. Okay. Where is that debt to GDP number that we were just looking at? Right there, column L. Now, why is there a difference? It said 96.1. Well, that was for the third quarter of 2021. This is for the entire fiscal year. So they had to bake in some projections there as of March of 2021. But that's your target variable, and that's the projection over the next 30 years. Okay. Next up are revenues and outlays. These are the projections for revenues throughout time as a percent of GDP. So you can see that currently they're around 16% of GDP, forecasted to get to around 18% of GDP. What about spending? Well, we have total spending over here in column I. Right now around 26% of GDP, forecasted to rise to 31.8% of GDP. Well, how do I go from revenues and outlays to the debt? It's the deficit. That's the secret. Okay, so you take all of your revenues in a given year, take all of your outlays in a given year, or spending, and you take the difference. That will give you a sense of the deficit. If you take how much you had in debt last year, add on the deficit, you get the debt for this year. All right, and you can see those deficit columns right here. Go back to the data and you see economic projections, historical as well as projections over next planning horizons. Let me open that up for you, and you see many different categories here. Again, make sure you have somebody on your team who's good with analytics. Output, gross domestic product, is a measure of output, but there's many ways to measure that. GDP versus GNP. GNP is looking at the citizenry. GDP is thinking about our territorial borders. We're focused on GDP. Real GDP versus just gross domestic product. Real GDP accounts for inflation adjustment. GDP, as seen in column 9, does not. Sometimes it's called nominal GDP, all right, NGDP. That's our focus, all right? So row 9 is still our focus. It's nominal gross domestic product. Next up, you see over here, this looks like, GDP, but it's got this prefix on potential. So why do I want row 9 rather than row 21? Potential is telling us, what if we used all of our resources? Full resource utilization of land, labor, and capital. What could we potentially produce in the economy? That's the number. Now, we don't observe that. It has to be estimated, and then thereby also has to be forecasted over our planning horizon. It could be that our economy is not achieving our potential, maybe exceeding our potential. It could be that we're forecasted not to or potentially exceed that potential. That's not what we're focused on. All right, when we're thinking about debt to GDP, your target variable are right here in row 9 and the forecast thereof. Okay, so just a few key tips for you. I hope that's helpful. Remember, debt to GDP, Fred, cbo.gov. Good luck in the fiscal challenge.